Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best soup analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Wilby Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. And tonight, we're thrilled to be joined by special guest Cyrus Saatsaz, who is an award-winning journalist who covers the Golden State Warriors. More on him in just a moment. This is episode number 221, the LaMelo Ball episode, as LaMelo took home the league's Rookie of the Year award in 2021, becoming the first Hornet to do so since, World B, help me out.
LJ.
No, Emeka Okafor. Nice try, though. We're just warming up here on tonight's show.
I was really hoping you just glossed by that, but that's all right.
It's okay. We'll keep it moving here. So, Bruce, why don't you give tonight's guest a proper introduction?
Well, thanks, Ross. Cyrus Saatsaz is our go-to guy for all things Golden State Warriors. He's our brother from the Believe Network, where he hosts the Golden Daze podcast and his YouTube shows. He has his hands on any number of digital platforms where he spreads his knowledge far and wide and his sense of humor as well. I could spend 10 minutes going through his resume, but you know what? Let's just talk some hoop. In the second half of tonight, yeah, we got to do that. The second half of this show, by the way, Cyrus is going to go into his Warriors Confidential segment with us, where we're going to take a really deep dive into that team. But we got a lot to talk about from around the association. Before we talk Dubs, welcome to 48 Minutes, Cyrus.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I've been aware of your show for a very long time because you are the unofficial Believe in NBA. I don't think there's an actual Believe in NBA, so you're like the unofficial official Believe in NBA program. You're like the show of the network that covers the whole thing. But what I didn't realize is that you have a 60-minute theme. That suddenly makes a lot more sense in your intro with the clock ticking. I was like 48 minutes, length of a basketball game in the NBA. I get it. But with the clock ticking, now it makes 100% sense. If I'm making sense. By the way, Ross, impressed that you're a video coordinator. I actually got my hands on the tape that video coordinators in the NBA get earlier this season, and It gave me a really a fresh perspective on what teams look at when they're studying film. It also opened my eyes in terms of what's going on with the Warriors. This was earlier in the season. But that's awesome. I thought that was cool to get to know you. And Michael, an multi-Emmy award winner. I'm surrounded by greats. And Bruce has been on my show before as a guest. So nice to meet you folks who I haven't met before. Bruce, great to see you again, and thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thank you, Cyrus.
Thanks for joining us, Cyrus. And we appreciate the kind words there as the unofficial NBA show of Believe. We'll take that for sure. But all right, we got some things to talk about here tonight before we talk about your dubs. And first things first, the All-Star reserves were announced, and this year there were 6 first-time All-Stars, which is pretty exciting. Usually we don't see that many being announced as first-time All-Stars in the same group, but I thought it'd be fun if we all picked a snubbed player from both conferences. So which player should be dropped from the All-Star team for that player that you think was snubbed? I think it'd be great if we could do a little who would you insert, who would you remove from that group. So let's go ahead and start out East, Cyrus, and who do you think was snubbed from the Eastern Conference team, and who would be your choice to replace that player?
I thought I have a clear, and I think obvious, at least to me, answer in the West. The East, I actually thought it worked out. I thought they got it right. I know Giannis is not going to make the team ultimately because of the injury. Rather, he made the team, but he's going to have an injury replacement, and whether that's Karl Anthony Towns. To me, the snub is Michael Porter Jr., who, statistically speaking, is having an unbelievable year. I feel like what we're seeing from him with the Brooklyn Nets is what the people who hyped him up most before he got drafted a few years back, this is what they hyped up, is what we're seeing now. This was the potential that a lot of people discussed in terms of what he could be without the back injuries that dropped him in the draft in the first place to the mid-first round instead of being a high lottery pick. And on that note, I also want to say if the Detroit Pistons don't make a move for him, it's moronic on their part, because I saw Detroit come into the Bay Area just the other night, and they're a damn good basketball team, but they have one key flaw in my book, and that's shooting. I don't think they have enough outside shooting, and Michael Porter Jr. solves that issue for you. He's a sniper, and so that's my pick in the East.
All right, great choice. Bruce?
Well, I'm basically agreeing with Cyrus here. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. Has been, getting like big time buckets, lots of buckets. His team sucks, so that's kind of works against him a little bit. And the guy that I would drop, ironically, is Karl Anthony Towns, who was selected as an alternate. I mean, I just feel like he hasn't always busted his butt on defense, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame someday. I know that he's a 6-time All-Star and all kinds of numbers, and he's a talented offensive player. But I thought MPJ, and I gave some thought to Miles Bridges as well, a hard-nosed competitor on a team that's kind of coming up in the world. But again, crappy record so far, although it's getting better, works against him. But he's helping to lead a young team towards success. And I know World B. Freer is a big fan of his.
Well, I am. And it's, I guess we should have coordinated our answers here because that's my choice. I think Michael Porter Jr., Cyrus mentioned he's been a consistent player throughout his career in Denver. He just didn't have the minutes, and he's taking the back seat to some other great players on that roster. And now he's on a team where he is the man. He's living up to as Cyrus said, the hype. He's almost 25 a night. He's on a roll these days. As you guys mentioned, just a lousy. I mean, they're just horrible. Nets team that's taking some growing pains with all the rookies or whatever. And I'm with you guys. I think I would replace Karl Anthony Towns with Michael Porter Jr. And it's not because I'm really down. I'm the one big fact probably among us four that supports is a fan of Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think he's not getting the touches that he did last year. His offensive game is lacking. He's getting rebounds like crazy, so that's not changing. But he's just not getting the touches that he was last year. About 8 or so fewer touches a game. And you translate into 60% shooting, you're talking about maybe 5, 6, 7 points more per game he's missing out on. That's why his offensive numbers to me aren't the same. All that being said, I don't think he's having an all-star type season. The numbers don't say it. And so I think Michael Porter, it would be great to reward a guy who we wanted him to get, he was on the spotlight and he's lived up to it every sense of the way. And I agree with Cyrus. He should be somebody's pickup in the trade deadline. Whether he is or not, we'll see. But I would totally, if I'm a team contending like the Pistons, totally go after him.
And my apologies, by the way, for saying Karl Anthony Towns might be selected as an alternate. He is an alternate, like you said, Bruce. I should have said Joel Embiid. I think will be. I don't know, but my apologies.
He probably will.
That's the other guy too, by the way. I think if it's not Michael Porter, if I had to pick another guy, it's absolutely Joel Embiid.
Well, that's funny because I actually have a third guy I want to throw out there for us too. We teased at the top with you, Cyrus, that I'm the lead guard. I'm going to lead you to another thought here on who I would look at, and that is Brandon Ingram. He is the leading scorer, averaging 22 points a game on a Toronto Raptors team that's currently top 4 in the Eastern Conference. I mean, Ingram has played a major role in helping this Raptors group be 9 games above 500 after 51 games played this season. And the fact that Scotty Barnes is Toronto's lone all-star just doesn't really sit right with me. I mean, if we're going to wait winning into this, I think he should be a factor in this conversation. And if Michael Porter Jr. can't make the team because he's with Brooklyn and their record, I don't think Pascal Siakam should make the team. No disrespect to Pascal. He's having a great year. But so is Michael Porter Jr. So, Siakam's actually my pick to be taken off the Eastern Conference team and get a guy like Brandon Ingram who's on a top 4 team out east. Now let's go ahead and shift over to the Western Conference here, Cyrus. Looking forward to seeing what you have here.
Oh, for the West, I thought that one was more obvious to me. And I know LeBron James is a popular figure in the NBA. I mean, he generates a ton of business, and this is a business. But look, I'm pushing back very strongly on his selection. I do not agree with it. I do not think it's deserving. I do think this is an honorary title, except it's not. And it doesn't sit right with me. To me, I know most people when it comes to the Clippers, have been leaning toward James Harden as being the guy who maybe should have been selected instead of LeBron or instead of anybody if someone's being snubbed. Even though the games played might pose a potential predicament, Kawhi Leonard is playing such good basketball. Yeah. And when you look at what the Clippers have been doing after that horrendous start to the season, they are literally the hottest team in the NBA. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's something like 30 of their last 35, or I'll try to find it during the show to get the exact record, but they are insane in terms of how good they are. The fact that they're just 2 games back to the Golden State Warriors in the loss column in the Western Conference standings alone is a testament to just how shocking this comeback's been. And to me, it starts with Kawhi Leonard. I know Harden's been more consistent. He's been playing, but he was also playing at the beginning when they were a bad team. And to me, the one difference was Kawhi coming back into form. That's when the switch got flipped. And so for me, it's Kawhi Leonard, who is still incredibly playing at an elite level.
All right. Bruce?
Part of what is meaningful with the All-Star game is that a lot of times the fans want to see guys that are legends, maybe, beyond, with their best days behind them. I mean, I remember, I'm a old-time baseball fan, and I remember Willie Mays making all-star teams when he was in his late 30s, and he wasn't nearly the player that he was, but he was still Willie Mays. So LeBron James is in that category. I mean, he should always be an all-star as long as he plays, but his selection, I agree with Cyrus, felt like a kind of a lifetime achievement selection. And if he weren't costing deserving players like Kawhi Leonard and my choice, Alpi Şengün, their spots, I would have no issue. But these situations are more frequent every year now, because Kevin Durant's going to have this happen. And, and guys who make it to 15, 16 years that are still big names, fans are going to want to see them. So I believe I would be good if, let's say, Adam Silver in the league put together kind of a blue ribbon committee. All right. With Adam leading it, basically choosing 2 wild card selections for each conference in addition to the first 12. That might help the voters, kind of give them a crutch where they kind of know, all right, we know LeBron should be in the All-Star game, but he hasn't really earned it. But Adam and his crew will pick him as a wild card. So I think they would then get the best 12 and then 2, let's say, big names who are lifetime achievement appointees, if you will.
Real, if you don't mind me asking one quick question, Bruce, when we brought up the Willie Mays reference there, huge fundamental difference between baseball and the NBA is that in baseball, unless the rules have changed, I haven't followed closely lately, but every team used to have 1 representative. Was Willie Mays back then the Giants representative, or was he getting these charity selections because he is a quote-unquote star?
I remember, at the tail end of his career, he was with the Mets, and it was kind of embarrassing. Like,
right.
In the world, but I'm not sure that he ever made the All-Star team as a Met, although he might have. I didn't check it, And the Willie Mays thing just kind of popped into my head as I was thinking about LeBron, just hearkening back to those days. So I don't know. But Willie Mays, I mean, when he was 36 years old, he was still playing at an All-Star level. When he was 39 years old, he might not have been. So, but we actually still Willie Mays.
We actually have a more relevant one in baseball. Last year will be, I think you can probably correct me if I'm wrong on here, but they had Clayton Kershaw as an honorary All-Star. He was not an All-Star pitcher last year in the NL, but he still was able to play in the game based on his, historic resume and his, announcement of retirement. So we saw it just last year in baseball with yet another Dodger, which they have plenty of all-stars as it is, making the team because he's Clayton Kershaw. So I'm in agreement with you guys. Maybe LeBron should just get that from Adam Silver and make sure guys like Şengün can make this team. But who's your pick?
Well, first of all, I didn't have a problem with LeBron being on there. I think he is not. I think his numbers are just fine. I think they can match up with a lot of guys who made the All-Star team. It probably is more of an honorary thing than a deserving thing, but at the same time, I really don't have a problem with it. The person that I would have put on, I agree with Cyrus, is Kawhi Leonard. I mean, we as fans, we've been asking Kawhi, you got to play more. Well, he gets in 35 games this year after he missed part of the season. And he's 20, almost 28 a game, 6 boards a game. He's shooting about 50% from the field. He's shooting about 40% from three. He's still doing the defensive thing with 2 steals a game. He's doing everything you as fans you ask of this guy to do. When all he's been for the last couple of years been criticized because of load management, because of his injuries. He rests on back end of back to back, and then he starts playing, and we don't give him the credit for that when he plays in both. And the guy I would have taken off, and I get why he's on there. And it's not that these guys are undeserving to me. It's just you got to bump somebody to put somebody in. Chet Holmgren to me doesn't seem like he's a great player. I just don't know if he's put up the all-star type numbers that you look for me, that you look for. He's going to be in multiple all-star. He's going to be our Olympic representative, one of our Olympic guys for years to come for Team USA. Kawhi's having a better year, I think, than Chet Holmgren, and that's just where I am on terms of snub. I do like the idea, Ross, that we actually didn't say who got snubbed and added on who you would replace. I think that's how we need to do it. You can't just say, 10 players need to be on the All-Star team and not mention somebody needs to be left off. You can't have a 20-man roster.
Yeah, and Chet's a great pick too as well. I actually went with Cyrus and Bruce here. And Kawhi Leonard, I think, needs to make the team. LeBron comes off. I don't want to beat a dead horse with that. Just the fascinating thing when I was looking into this is the fact Kawhi's played 4 more games than LeBron this year. That should be awarded alone, just given Kawhi's history.
There you go.
And the other thing is he's averaging 27.6 points per game. That is a career high for the Claw. I mean, he's been an MVP type caliber player for years now, and he's having his peak scoring moment this season. And for him not to make the team is kind of mind blowing to me, especially since this game is being played at the Clippers' home arena. So, Cyrus, I'm curious to get your thoughts here on that. I mean, is this any type of repercussions to what happened this summer that they don't have a representative?
Look, I mean, I was thinking about that because the Clippers were involved in all that drama, as everyone knows, the fake tree company. We still don't know if there's what the results are of the investigation and into whether or not there were any improprieties with the payments to Kawhi. But like you said, 27.6 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game. The Clippers have won 17 of their last 19 games. That's an unbelievable stretch. And it's largely because of Kawhi stepping it up. And you brought up the scoring increase. He had a stretch there. There was a 3-game stretch. I don't know if you folks remember this. This was from December 28th through the new year, where against Detroit, a team notorious for being amazing defensively, he dropped 55, a career high. Just this season, and then followed that up 2 games later. Well, the next game he had 33 against the Kings, and then had 45 against Utah. So 55, 33, 45. That was a 3-game stretch at one point this season, and he's been consistent throughout. And like you say, Ross, this game's add into it. And for the Clippers to not have representation, the conspiracy part of my mind, and Bruce, all your years at ESPN, you'd be able to provide a better answer, I think, than any of us. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mean to speak on you two's part, gentlemen, but this does reek of a punitive decision. I could be wrong on that. I was expecting a decision on the Accenture investigation, a conclusion to that before the All-Star game, because I imagine questions will be raised with the media there, with the spotlight on the location and the team. Maybe this is the way that the NBA levies a punishment in a subtle manner while avoiding these kinds of questions being asked. I don't know. I could also be totally blowing smoke here, but those are my thoughts on it.
I mean, who selects the reserves? Isn't that like coaches?
Correct.
So, I mean, do the coaches really care if maybe they do. Maybe they do. I mean, to me, the media would be more inclined to penalize somebody for something like that because, it's different. I mean, being a coach, I think you have a tendency to be more, fair-minded about these things as opposed to holding any grudges.
You think?
Hey, real quick, before we move on.
Maybe not.
No,
I don't know. I'm saying you're probably right. Who knows, man? Right? We've experienced far weirder things with NBA coaches and the NBA in general.
Yeah, good.
It is a weird association as a whole. It doesn't stop getting bizarre to me as the older I get. I would think it'd be the opposite. Like things will start making more sense as you get older. With the NBA, it's a show. it's a wild ride.
Hey, just real quick, it's still a 12-man roster, right? In the All-Star game, it's not.
Yes.
Why don't we just extend it out to 15?
Well, that's what I said. They should pick 2 wild cards. You could make it 14. You could make it 15 if you want to do 3.
Well, here's my pushback on that.
Because then you can have 30 guys playing no defense instead of 24.
But I'm going to strongly disagree with the notion of increasing it for one reason primarily, which is the Eastern Conference. The East, to me, like if you're going to scrap the conferences, okay, because I do think there are 30 All-Stars that you can find, but the fact that half of the All-Stars has to come from the Eastern Conference, that to me, like it makes. I just don't know if like anybody's actually being snubbed in the East. I feel like we had to kind of reach a little bit to come up with Michael Porter Jr. There's a couple names in the West. I also like the fact that with the 12 on each side, it brings prestige to being selected as an All-Star. That's the one thing I haven't liked with other sports when they've expanded All-Star rosters is it waters down the prestige factor, the value of this honor as a whole. When there's only 24 of them and you're one of those 24, it feels a hell of a lot better than if you're one of 30. But that's just me. I don't know.
And you know what's funny, to piggyback on that, I think that's a strong argument, Cyrus, is the fact that we might start looking at the All-Star game selections a little bit more heavily than we are the All-NBA teams, given the 65 game rule. I mean, some of these guys that are just going to miss that mark and not be eligible for awards, we might look back and be like, since they changed this rule, we need to carry more weight into like the All-Star selection.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have to see how that kind of tracks as years go on. But you mentioned the rosters real quickly here before we move on. On Tuesday, when this show drops, the NBA will announce the World vs. USA rosters because that has still not been determined. And if the league adheres to players' FIBA status, both Norman Powell and Karl Anthony Towns would be on the world selection. So really curious to see kind of how they break this up. It should be an interesting first year. Now, in recent years, the All-Star game, let's just call it what it's been a terrible watch. I mean, it has not been a lot of fun for the actual game, but at least the NBA is trying to come up with new ways to improve the game, improve the interest from NBA fans that look forward to this. And real quickly here, I'd be curious to kind of hear your favorite NBA All-Star game of the past, maybe even one back, way back when. But is there any year in particular, Cyrus, that stands out to you as like that was my favorite All-Star game?
I have 2 answers for you. One's going to be very biased and one's going to be just straight from memory and a genuine answer. But even before that, I want to quickly say this too. And I don't know if you gentlemen agree with what may be a bold opinion, maybe an irrelevant opinion. To me, the concept of the All-Star game is antiquated. To me, at this point, the only reason you're having All-Star events is so the NBA comes up with another excuse to make money. The idea of an All-Star game when it originated, 100 years ago, whenever it was with baseball, and then it extends to other sports and youth sports have it, and youth sports is a whole different issue. I'm talking just professionally, but it was primarily so that the players that you are not familiar with were exposed to the masses, right? If I'm going to look at the NBA All-Star roster right now and the reserves, for example, Denny Avdia of the Portland Trailblazers. Before social media and the advent of digital media, there's probably folks on the East Coast who did not get a chance to see Denny at all this season. If he wasn't on national television, this was your chance to see a star player for the first time because he's buried in Portland and you're probably missing a lot of those games. With social media, with NBA League Pass, if anything, to me, and again, this is all just subjective, I'm just spitballing here, but to me, if anything, there's almost a crisis of overexposure with a lot of these guys. And in a game that's meaningless, in a game that is literally an exhibition with no repercussions, no consequences for winning or losing, I don't get what the point is for us doing this today. It's like you mentioned the All NBA having maybe some issues with the 65 game rule, but I don't know what the difference is between the All-Star game and All NBA, except you're choosing these at the middle of the year, not the end of the year. You're getting some fans involved, and I get that part of it. But I don't know. Do you guys agree with me on that? Is the All-Star game is it cooked? Because I think it is.
It's not real basketball. It's like a glorified layup line in front of a big crowd, because that's basically when you have a game where a team scores like 200 points, or a game where two combined teams take a total of 3 free throws. That you can look it up.
Are you exaggerating?
No, you can look it up. A couple of years ago, there was a total of, which showed me there was no defense being played. Some of those guys are all-stars because they're great two-way players, but in the all-star game, nobody plays two ways. Although my favorite all-star game from the year I'm going to tell you about, somebody did play defense that year.
Oh, and really quickly, I didn't mean to steer it from that. I let me answer your original question of the best All-Star moment. My biased answer is Stephen Curry winning the All-Star MVP, because I have to say that, and I want to say that. But off anecdotally speaking, off all the years and decades I've been watching the NBA, to me the most special All-Star moment was Magic Johnson coming back, because he had to force retirement because of the HIV revelation, and he had to abruptly quit. And then he got brought back for the All-Star game, and he lit it up. He actually was playing. I think he had the game-winning 3. It was competitive, and obviously it was newsworthy and noteworthy because us as a species was still learning about HIV. There were a lot of stereotypes and misnomers about it, misinformation about it. This was even before social media. So for Magic to do that, I thought it was a very noteworthy event, and I was glued to my TV set when that was going on.
All right, great choice there. Bruce, tell us who played defense.
Okay. I covered more All-Star games than I can even remember between 1994 and 2017 when it was in my previous career at ESPN. But the one that will always stand out to me was 2002 in Philadelphia, Kobe Bryant's hometown. He was 23 years old. He was an all-star for the 4th time. He was already a 2-time champ and would make it number 3 later in that 2002 season. And how did the Philly fans treat the young star from their town? They booed the living bejesus out of him. But then, in classic Mama style, he said, played 28 minutes. Delivered an absolute drop-the-mic performance. 31 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 steals. Yes, actual defense in an all-star game. And the All-Star MVP trophy, an award that is now named after him, okay? I believe that weekend, I witnessed Kobe Bryant morph into larger-than-life Kobe Bryant.
Very nice. World B?
Well, my favorite one, and maybe my favorite All-Star game in any sport, was the year before, 2001, down in Washington, D.C. Like Bruce, I used to work at ESPN, and I was working on the NBA show down there and at all the ESPN zone, Bruce, down there in D.C., doing our post-game show. So we were watching it, and it was just an unbelievable game. If everybody remembers it was the West, who was just like now, the dominant conference, had all the hype. The East had no business being a part of it. And the East was down 20 in the 4th quarter. And Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury made this amazing comeback, and he ended up pulling out the game. It was just incredibly competitive when the game got tight between a group of the best on the court, the best in the world, going at it. And the crowd got into it. It was like a regular season game. It felt like you could see the guys competing. You mentioned Kobe Bryant. He was scoring buckets for the West at the other end every time the East was trying to come back. And then Iverson makes a big 3. Stephon Marbury, before he became a Knick and lost his shooting touch, made 3 after 3 in that 4th quarter, including the game winner. So that was my favorite game. It was just a really fun night. It was what you want out of an all-star game at any sport. And as we talked about before, you just don't have it anymore in terms of competition.
Was that the one that Jordan played in too, where him and Kobe were going?
That was 2003, I believe.
Okay.
Was that down in Atlanta, maybe?
We'll get to that one in just a second.
It was Atlanta, yeah.
Bruce, did you have a story you wanted to share?
I know it was long-winded about Kobe in 2002, but there was another quick story from that year involving Iverson, not Allen, his mom, Ann. I was on the court prior to the game, and NBC, it was in the last year of their contract. Ahmad Rashad was there for NBC on the court. Ann Iverson had a credential. She was talking to Ahmad on the court, and I was standing right next to them. I mean, I worked with Ahmad at NBC, so I knew him, as well, but I wasn't in that conversation. I was Ahmad adjacent. Anyway, Ann Iverson had on her son's jersey and more jewelry than I have ever seen on a human being. She had on either 2 or 3 watches. I swear to God, I'm not entirely sure, but I know for certain it was more than one. Okay. She was having a glorious time basking in the glow of her son's stardom in the building where he was a hoop god. She was living the dream of every NBA player's mom. And I was there for it then, and I'm here for it now.
Yeah, that's a moment you'll never forget for sure. Now, all right, you guys shared 01, 02. I've got 03 here. That NBA All-Star game was in Atlanta. Not only did that game go to double overtime, but it was actually Michael Jordan's final All-Star game in which he dropped 20 points. I always like to point out, for everyone that knows me, my favorite player of all time, Vince Carter, gave up his starting spot to the GOAT in that game, which I thought was a class act move.
Agreed.
And, speaking of my all-time favorites, Sean Marion, growing up a Suns fan, being able to guard Michael Jordan down the stretch in those overtimes was a lot of fun to watch, even though he did get cooked a couple of times. It was just kind of fun to see the youngster go against the GOAT in those type of matchups. And this was the last time we saw 4 of the best players that have ever touched the floor play together. And that was MJ, Kobe, Shaq, and Tim Duncan sharing the court. Incredible list of guys. And with MJ retiring after that, that was the final moment that we got. So 03 was unforgettable in my book.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Do they still do the Elon ending with the All-Star format now?
I think so. I think that's
they have been.
Yeah, I think they're doing.
That's the one thing that keeps me interested.
Definitely, it helped a lot.
Here's why I bring that up, and I agree, it does make things a lot more interesting. But the criticism. Here's why I bring that up, and why I'm going to call it a negative in the grand scheme of things. And maybe you folks will find the humor in this, maybe not. One of the perks I used to always think of the All-Star game, and I don't know if you gentlemen are betting men, I am, is the over would hit every damn time because no one ever plays defense. It was the easiest money I ever made in my life until that damn Elon ending, because that screwed up the whole OU. Now points are not just flowing, it's actually competitive at the end, and that over stopped being a lock. So that's my gripe with the Elon ending.
Awesome. See how gambling's ruined the sport.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, moving on, let's talk about a couple teams that have done some gambling over the past week, and we had our first set of trades in the NBA. Let's talk about the first big one here. It was a 3-team trade that went down over the weekend between the Bulls, Cavs, and the Kings. DeAndre Hunter is headed to the Kings. Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis are headed to the Cavs, along with Emmanuel Miller, who I don't even know who that is, but we'll keep it moving. And the Bulls received 2 future second-round picks for assisting in the deal by taking on Dario Saric's contract. So, Cyrus, I'll start with you. What were your initial reactions to seeing this deal, and do you like what the Cavs did? Because obviously that's the most important part.
Absolutely, because the Sacramento Kings have the worst owner, not currently, but maybe ever. So the record reflects just how badly that ship is being captained right now. Look, first of all, the Bulls' involvement in this is funny. It's what the Bulls do, right? Yeah, we'll get in. Yeah, sure. They either swap rosters with the Kings, or they're just that third team that will pick up little second rounders as big trades are being done around them. Dario Saric, it's a minor miracle. He's still active in the NBA. I cannot believe that the Denver Nuggets 2 years ago gave him that player option for like $6 million. Of course he was going to exercise that. That was just free money he cashed in. I still, again, a big part of me wonders if what was the Nuggets GM, Calvin Booth, was that his name? Yep. If that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because who was giving Dario Saric at that point in his career not a 1-year $6 million deal, a 2-year $12 million deal? That might have been it. Anyways, I digress. So Dario Saric, his name still relevant because he got involved in that trade. I think I actually gave the Kings, who are a miserable organization. Their fan base is in just pure deep depression right now, getting prescribed antidepressants literally as we speak. Doctors' offices are open. We're recording this at 6:40 p.m. They're staying open late in Sacramento because Kings fans are that mired in just pure misery. With that said, I actually like the trade for the Kings. I know you asked me about the Cavaliers are the only team that really matters in this, but I want to quickly say for the Kings, congrats on just doing something. Because you guys are they're the captains of putting together a roster that makes absolutely no sense. They had like 5 point guards on this roster, none of whom are currently either elite or in their prime. And that made no sense. So getting rid of Dennis Schroeder, congrats. You grossly overpaid for him to begin with. You got him off your roster. Bravo to that. I'm with you, Ross, and that I have no idea who that other guy was whose name you mentioned. Never heard of him until that trade. But for Sacramento, you actually got a piece that you can at least like give your fans something to be a little excited for. I didn't get last year why Cleveland even made the trade for DeAndre Hunter. I thought they were playing borderline perfect basketball. They make this trade, and I get it. They wanted to get even better for the postseason. It backfired, though. It's like I don't know why you would mess with your team chemistry when you're a 60-plus win team, and that's where they were already going before the trade. So I didn't get that to begin with, but they make the trade. It clearly doesn't work out. And I had on last week a guest on my program. Her name is Gab Gould. She's part of the FanDuel team, a spectacular individual. She was a delight. And she gave me some interesting insights about the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I was not aware of because I'm not watching them religiously, which is the Lonzo Ball, the basic, it wasn't a trade, but it felt like it. They basically got rid of Ty Jerome by not re-signing him. He goes to Memphis. They get Lonzo Ball. On paper, I thought it was an upgrade. Turns out to be a downgrade for like everyone involved. Ty Jerome's not playing in Memphis. Lonzo Ball, I didn't realize, was in DNP hell. Like, for whatever reason, it's just not working out there. And she told me that the three-point shot was not falling for him. That was the culprit behind the DNPs. But still, I mean, Lonzo was playing good basketball in Chicago. He goes to Cleveland, suddenly becomes, persona non grata, can't find minutes on the court. So for them to get Dennis Schroeder, I think was a huge help, not only because of the Darius Garland injury history that we've seen recently, where durability has become a small issue for him, but Dennis Schroeder, to me, this is the kind of role you want him for. You don't want him to lead your team. And again, this is all subjective, but I don't think you want him being your starting point guard, running the ship. Like, a much better role for him in my book is having him come off the bench and being a specific role player like he's going to be with Cleveland, or filling in as a starter when Darius Garland's hurt. I do think this helps the Cavaliers tremendously. Again, that DeAndre Hunter, just for whatever reason, it wasn't a good fit. It didn't work out. This was a win-win. I'm a little surprised, honestly, gentlemen, with the trade deadline 2+ days away, that we have not seen more deals like this. But I thought this was a win for everyone involved, Bulls included, because they got 2 free second-rounders out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you put up a good argument there. I think the emergence of Jalen Tyson with the Cleveland Cavaliers, certainly made DeAndre Hunter expendable. I think Hunter came on board late last season in preparation that they'd be facing the Celtics with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the playoffs for a 7-game series. And they're like, we need a guy like Hunter to give them some fits on the wings defensively. And obviously that's not going to be the case this year. And, to make up for the mistake of letting Ty Jerome go, to get Schroeder is a huge help. Not to mention Keon Ellis. I know that you've seen him quite a bit being in the Pacific Division. He's a really good 3-and-D player, young player. I was just a little shocked that the Kings were so willing to move on from him.
Keon Ellis, again, this is just I don't understand. The Kings are just nonsensical. Like Doug Christie, I know he's a fan favorite, but how do you have fan favorites when you're the most mired franchise in NBA history? Like, just because he played for you once does not mean he should be getting special grace and handouts in terms of head coaching positions. The results speak for themselves. He's not a real head coach. That's going to be one of many decisions they're going to have to make. And the reason why I bring Doug Christie's name up is because for whatever reason, he was DNPing Keon Ellis. I can't believe, thank you for mentioning, I forgot to even bring him up. That's another player that the Cavaliers got that I think brings great value. I don't know why the Kings DNP'd him. I cover the Warriors. I still don't know why Steve Kerr DNP'd Jonathan Kuminga. Some coaches just have these weird inane rules in their head that they abide by that make no sense other than they're just listening to their gut. And oftentimes when you see that level of rationale behind these big decisions, you also see these kinds of results. It doesn't work out. So with Keon Ellis, that's another. I'm glad you brought him up because the Cavaliers just got better defensively. I think this was a huge win for everyone, I think.
Yeah. Will be Bruce, anything you want to chime in on?
Well, I was just, I was surprised the Cavs moved on from Hunter so soon after they picked him up. But, as you both correctly pointed out, the reason they got him, he was going to be the Tatum stopper should those teams have met in the playoffs. But, of course, Cleveland exited early. And also it's true that Tyson has been lighting it up from downtown. I mean, he's shooting like 46% on threes. I mean, that's stupid numbers. It's like Steph Curry numbers. But to me, Schroeder is a fascinating case, okay? This is going to be his 11th NBA team, okay? He spent a single season or less with 6 of his first 10 teams, okay? So while it looks like he wears out his welcome quickly, he always seems to find another team, right? He's an international superstar. I mean, he was, in the FIBA tournament, he was the man, okay? And I'm curious, because I'm a Celtics fan. He was there for a minute. He did good when he was there, but, then he was gone before you knew it. But Cyrus, he was a Warrior. What was he like last season during his time as a Warrior?
Irrelevant. When that trade first went down, first of all, our program was forefront and center, publicly lambasting the move, not understanding it. It was the last thing this team needed. The Warriors are already the shortest team in the NBA. What is the logic behind getting shorter? Dennis Schroeder 6'1". Again, I think there were rules for him that make sense, but the moment you're going to act like you need him to give you 15, 20 points a night, that's where you're in trouble. Just don't count on him. Use him in a certain role, great. But the moment teams think like Sacramento coughed up $15 million for this guy, I could not understand that when they did so. But there it is. Yeah, it wasn't a good fit. It was Dennis Schroeder came to the Warriors, and the Warriors, Steve Kerr expected him to actually be a consistent contributor on a night-by-night basis, and that's just what Dennis Schroeder is not. He's just not consistent. I think that's the bottom line in terms of what his weakness is. You can't expect him to do the same thing night after night, except for little things like defense. And that's why I call him a role player, is because as a role player, I think he's very serviceable. As a guy who you're expecting to be a starter, as one of your 5 closers, you're asking for a lot at that point.
Will be?
Well, a couple of things that I think need to be addressed when it comes to Cleveland. The largest payroll does not belong to the Knicks. It doesn't belong to the Lakers. It belongs to the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
And they were in salary cap hell when it came to that second apron. That's the reason that DeAndre Hunter, who is gone, they had to do it. They do not want to be mired in the second apron of the luxury tax. They saved about 40 to 50 million, depending on who you listen to. Now he's struggling. He absolutely struggled, about 31% on threes. When you have a shooter who can't shoot, you run out of things for him to do. So that's why he's in Sacramento. He was great when he was in Cleveland last year. They got him. They had aspirations of playing for a championship. That's why they got him, and he performed right up until the playoff time when really the whole team, crapped the bed in terms of shooting. And that was one of the best shooting seasons of all time Cleveland had, and then they couldn't shoot in the playoffs. That's why he's in Cleveland. I agree with Keon Ellis coming is a good deal for the Cavs. I just don't know where he's going to play now. He's not going any closer to the court, I don't think. He's mired 4th right now, probably in the depth chart of guards behind the 2-star Mitchell, Garland, and now Schroeder. I agree with Cyrus. I think the Kings, you match up Keegan Murray and DeAndre Hunter, if you can find his shot again, that's not bad for the wings. You got at least a positive, promising outlook for the Kings there. Now you got to get rid of all the other dead weight, but you start somewhere. And I hate it for the Bulls' standpoint, simply because this means they're going to have to waive my man Javon Carter from West Virginia. I don't want to see him on the unemployment line there from the NBA. He's been little used there, but now he can end up in New York or whatever. I don't know, but he's a good player who's just stuck in a rotten situation in Chicago for, well, I don't know, a couple more minutes.
Good call in New York, by the way, because that to me is their biggest issue, and it's not even close as depth. So if you can add a quality piece, do it.
Yep. And real quickly here, before we go to break to get into Warriors Confidential with Cyrus, I do want to point out Vit Krejci was headed to the Blazers in a trade for Duop Reith and second-round picks. Don't laugh, Bruce. Krejci, he ranks 7th in the league, shooting 42.3% from three on the season, and he holds a 40% three-point field goal percentage over the course of his NBA career. It's been a short one, but this is a team that could use some shooting. So I think he's going to carve out some minutes off that bench, and we'll see if he has a significant impact or little impact. But either way, nice little tweak there by the Blazers.
I'm not disrespecting Krejci. When Atlanta beat the Celtics about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, he came off the bench and he was on fire. So he is capable of some streaky performances.
All right, and let's go ahead and get into Warriors Confidential with Cyrus. Cyrus, I'll tee us off here.
You don't have to, by the way. The Warriors are the 8th seed. We if you want to ignore them altogether, I will sign off on that. They're not good enough to have a whole segment, but if you want to, it's your show.
They're not getting off easy like that. Yeah. Come on, man.
There's a lot of noteworthy things going on in the Bay right now, and I'm going to start with the hottest ticket item right now because it is trade deadline week. And let's start off with Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, it's been an ugly saga with this guy, especially this year. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the entire ordeal. And will he or won't he be on the team past Thursday?
You're 100% right in terms of just this whole scenario being crazy. Look, gentlemen, if anyone is lucky in this world to work to call your profession and covering the NBA, right? And I know that's not a title, whether it's NBA reporter, producer, broadcaster, whatever. You're typically considered one of the luckiest people on this planet because it shouldn't feel like real work, right? And I've been covering the Golden State Warriors professionally for 25 years now. I've been doing the current program for about 2 years. I was on a couple networks over the last 5-6 years before that, covering the team. And this is work. Like, if you want to cover this team accurately, if you want to actually come off sounding smart, it's exhausting. I remember after last season when Kuminga was DNP'd at the end of the year, DNP'd at the start of the first round series against the Rockets, and then Jimmy Butler falls hard. He's injured. He's out. And then out of nowhere, Kuminga's back, and he's in the rotation. And then Steph Curry pops the hammy, and then Kuminga's back in the rotation again. And this time he's putting up 20-something points a game in the Timberwolves series that they ultimately lost in 5. But I think I slept for like 3 days straight because it's literally, to me, the hardest puzzle to solve in the NBA is what has been going on the last 3 years. 3 years. You can even say 4 years. Yeah. And it's really just two figures here that are involved. It's Steve Kerr and it's Jonathan Kuminga. And for whatever reason, Steve Kerr, I want to try to sound respectful here because on my show, I just totally blast them routinely because to me, the way he's handled this has been not just unprofessional, it's nonsensical, it's been counterproductive, but it just makes no sense, and it's not the right way to develop talent. Like what Kerr has never realized in my book is, and maybe he knows it and he doesn't care, but I can only judge someone based on their actions. And from what I see with him in young players who are not named Brandon Podziemski, for whatever reason, is a Steve Kerr favorite. And the favoritism is one of many critiques of his leadership. But with every other young piece, you don't see a commitment. Like you see Steve Kerr rolling a young piece out there, and the moment they make a mistake, they ride the bench. And that style of coaching might have worked 30 years ago. It might have worked in the Bobby Knight era. It might have worked, with if Phil Jackson, if Red Auerbach, shit like old school days, maybe that style works, right? But in the modern era, and I have experience teaching as well. I've been a professor for almost 15 years, so I got a firsthand look kind of studying millennials and then Gen Z and how they react to different teaching styles, leadership styles. They don't react well to the I'm punishing you for making a mistake approach. That doesn't work. If you do that, and I know I'm generally speaking, but for the most part, what these kids do when you treat them like that is they sulk. They start overthinking things. They're already anxious as it is. And then I bring on Bruce, your former colleague, Ramona Shelburne, and she's going to come back on the show soon because I just watched Clipped, her amazing show. Speaking of Elgin Baylor, he had a small role in that piece on FX. But Ramona Shelburne, to me, she came on the show last year and nailed it in saying that athletes who do not have a committed role, who are not given reinforcement from the coaching staff in terms of leeway, in terms of a grace to make mistakes and learn from it, then they're going to be in their own heads and they're going to be second guessing themselves. It is the worst way to build confidence in a young player. And that is how every young piece in the Steve Kerr era has been treated. Again, not named Brandon Pajemski, but every other young player, they get these little short runs. If they make mistakes, they ride the bench, sometimes for weeks on end, and they're not given a clear answer as to why. There is a strong lack of communication. So you factored that into it, and we are in the present day where, again, Kuminga wants out, and it's almost entirely because of how Steve Kerr's handled him and managed him and given him these DNPs. And you're now seeing that the way Steve Kerr views this roster and the way he views rotational decisions, it's almost like a game board where each player is like a piece. And he viewed Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga as two of the same piece. In other words, he looks at the NBA like it's chess. And to him, Jimmy Butler was a queen. You can't have two queens. So Jonathan Kuminga just was DNP'd. And that was his math for everything that went down. And now can Kuminga accept a handling like that? No, of course I don't. Like, who would? Like, who would just sit there and with that kind of talent just be fine, just sitting there DNP for over a month straight, not seeing any action? But that's what happened. And then Jimmy Butler gets hurt, and now he's back in the rotation. And it's really crazy that this is what it in terms of trying to find reason in this and logic. That's Kerr's logic. He just thinks that Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga play the exact same position. Now, there are some grumblings behind the scenes that maybe what he really sees is Kuminga and Draymond as playing the same position. And so he's scapegoating Kuminga to save Draymond and let him keep playing because, again, Steve Kerr has, plays favorites and the veterans are ultimately his biggest favorites. But we fast forward to today. Kuminga wants out. It doesn't look like he's going to get out because the team is not going to just give him away for nothing, which is what every other team is offering them. So you're not going to get a fair value trade from the Warriors' perspective. And then we can, and I've been talking forever. I'm going to shut up now because this is the setup for the Giannis piece, right? I know we're going to talk about this in a second, but to answer your question, to summarize a very long-winded answer, forgive me for this. I think Jonathan Kuminga is on this team, and I think the big picture goal here for ownership is ride this thing out this season. Steve Kerr's gone after this year, and then you hope that Kuminga is okay signing a contract extension and then becoming a centerpiece for whoever the next head coach is next year. That would be my guess.
All right. So I've always thought of Steve Kerr as kind of a players-friendly coach, right? Not a guy who's going to be hating on a player. So, but I also remember saying over the summer as we were grinding out show after show during the offseason that I felt like the whole Kuminga contract impasse, should I accept this? Should I not accept it? That he must have really pissed off management. I mean, big time, like above Steve Kerr's pay grade. So my question is there any world in which Steve Kerr, because to have 16 straight DNP CDs when the guy was healthy is just beyond the pale. So my question is, was there more nefarious forces working behind the scenes? Was the front office saying to Steve Kerr, you know what? You got a nice little team here. If you want to keep coaching it, here's how we want you to handle Kuminga. And I'm asking you because you'll know if I'm full of it or if there's any truth to that.
What you're trying to make sense of things, and that's what a lot of people do, because what you said would make sense. But what's going on does not make sense here. This is Steve Kerr doing things how he wants to do it. And Joe Lacob, the owner, likes Kuminga. Mike Dunleavy Jr., the GM, likes Kuminga. they would not have gone through that 3-month standoff this summer. It was a contract hold. It wasn't a contract holdout. Kuminga was a restricted free agent, and this was a weird offseason where he was one of 4 restricted free agents who were just in limbo because the NBA of 30 teams in it, 29 had 0 cap space. The only team that had cap space were the Brooklyn Nets, and they used that for Michael Porter Jr. That was their plan, and draft picks. So there was no space for anyone to make a real offer. As a result, you saw Cam Thomas sign a qualifying offer to go back with the Nets. You saw Quentin Grimes sign a qualifying offer to go back with the Sixers. Those two will be unrestricted free agents this coming offseason as a result of those decisions. You saw Josh Giddey sign the 4-year, $100 million deal to stay with the Bulls. And then the Kuminga part of it ultimately came down to a 2-year deal for approximately $50 million. However, year 2 is a team option, which is another one of many wrinkles in this. And the team option basically signifies to anyone that if you're going to trade for this guy, you better make sure he wants to be with you, because you could lose him for nothing in a year. And if he stays with the Warriors are not going to just exercise that team option. They're going to want to keep him long term, or at least like create a new contract so that they have leverage in any future trade discussions. So to answer your question, Bruce, the front office and Steve Kerr, and this is where, again, if you're part of Believe and you watch our shows, congrats. I call the Golden Days audience the highest IQ audience by far of any Golden State Warriors show. And if you want to brag about that for your program for the NBA, I believe it. Our network hires great talent, and we're lucky in that sense. And I say all that because when it comes to Golden Days, what we've been telling people from the outset is that there is and has been a 3, and no one in the media wants to touch on this. Very few people do. And it's largely because of the reverence that Steve Kerr has. He's earned I hope I can swear, a shitload of grace from the media. Like the Bay Area media, like they're sycophants, man. Like he has befriended all of them. So nobody really questions him. There was one beat reporter who would, and he moved on to the general news beat. So no one's really challenging Kerr. Anthony Slater maybe is the exception, but he's mostly focused on just reporting the facts and the truth. And so Kerr is in this weird bubble where I don't think he's hearing a lot of the noise. But what it's come down to is for 3.5, nearly 4 years, there's been a proxy war behind the scenes between the front office. When I say front office, I'm referring strictly to Joe Lacob. I have no idea if Peter Gruber is involved as well, or if he's just along for the ride making movies on the side. Side note, for people who aren't aware, the Warriors actually have 2 owners who have equal a majority stakes in the Warriors. One is Joe Lacob, who's the governor at the forefront, but his equal partner is Peter Guber, who, side note, in case you don't know who he is, literally produced Batman, the Michael Keaton version. If you watch that movie, his name's right at the beginning of the credits because he was behind that masterpiece. That's what he does. He makes films. He's a storyteller. He's all about the lights and the action and the show. And that's the ownership. And behind the scenes for 3.5 years now, there has been this silent, non-public proxy war between the front office and Steve Kerr. It pretty much started the moment Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole. That's where it all started to go downhill. It resulted in Bob Myers quitting, right? And he worked for ESPN for a year or two, and now I don't know what he's going to do next. I just talked to him today. I'm trying to get him back on my show. But this is what's going on. And so you have a front office who is afraid to take action because of Stephen Curry's allegiance to Steve Kerr, right? So there's like the business part of it that they don't want to ruffle a lot of feathers. And I'm confident this is Steve Kerr's last year. But behind the scenes, you've had these two visions where they used to be on the same page. And then the Draymond thing happened with Jordan Poole. You had the team not knowing how to handle that because any consequences that would have been applied to Draymond Green would have impacted ring night. And ring night is damn special for any team that wins a championship. But that's what would have been the repercussion. If you had suspended Draymond or penalized him for anything besides a fine, he would have missed ring night. And they didn't want to do that. But that was the beginning of the end, ultimately, in terms of this divide in the locker room. And so for 3.5 years, you have a proxy war where the front office has one vision, and that vision includes bringing size to the table, includes bringing players like Jimmy Butler on board. And then you have Steve Kerr's vision, which is Stephen Curry's the sun. This whole team revolves around him. Everything else is secondary. That's Steve Kerr's modus operatus. It's all about Steph. Everything else is secondary. And look, that strategy works great when Steph's in his prime. But here we are now, and it's not looking great. Sorry again for the long answer.
All right. Well,
sorry for making you speechless. Forgive me.
No, you're good.
No, you did. Now, one of you guys, World or Russ, why don't you take the Steph Curry question here for Cyrus?
Yeah, for sure. So with Steph Curry, my curiosity with him, obviously he is the cornerstone piece. Everything revolves around him. Where do you think his mindset's at these days? Do you truly feel he still thinks there's some type of a window with the franchise, or maybe one piece away from making another championship run? Does he have that glimmer of hope, or has he moved on and kind of, known his shot's over to win another title?
I think that thought did not cross his mind until this year, in terms of this kind of being it and their best opportunities past them. Pretty much when Jimmy Butler got hurt, my guess is he saw the writings on the wall. Like, this thing is pretty much over now. A lot of people have been very curious about his thoughts about the JK DNPs and because Draymond and Jimmy Butler have been completely behind Kuminga. They've completely had Kuminga's back in all this. Like, Jimmy Butler has publicly saying Kuminga's effusive praise, saying that he expected him to be out there with them. He didn't understand the DNPs. Draymond Green made a public commitment to Joe Lacob when he signed his last contract extension that he was going to take Kuminga under his wing and try to make Steve Kerr like him and appreciate him enough to give him minutes. And both those guys couldn't convince Steve Kerr to do otherwise. Stephen Curry has been more mute on the subject, but he has occasionally spoken up on it. And every time he speaks about it, he's very supportive of Kuminga, but at the same time, he loves his coach, and he's a very stay in your lane kind of guy, meaning he's a basketball player, and all he knows is Steve Kerr's his head coach, and Steph knows his role is player, and so he lets the coach make coaching decisions, and he adheres to that, and he does not want to ruffle feathers. He doesn't want to be hands-on like LeBron sometimes is with personnel decisions. He's also so busy. Like, he has a movie coming out next month called GOAT, that animated feature. He in addition to a whole bunch of other media responsibilities he has his basketball commitments, and maybe most importantly for him, I don't even want to say maybe, I'm confident that what's most important to him is his family, his wife and 4 kids. That is like by far his biggest priority. He's also a shoe free agent, which is an interesting wrinkle in his life right now. But while he figures out what he's going to do next there, I think ultimately Steph is in a position, and I've spoken to a lot of people behind the scenes about this because it's one of the more curious facets of what's going on with the Warriors. And ultimately, my guess is when Stephen Curry's contract expires next year, he retires. That would be my prediction. And I think next year will be, the farewell tour. I don't know if they'll announce it. I don't know if Steph will say anything, but I do think it reveals a lot that he hasn't signed any contract extensions. Like, if Steph went to the Warriors and said, add 2 more years to that deal, I don't know if that's legally possible, but at least one, they could definitely do that. The Warriors would not push back. Of course, the Warriors are going to give him whatever extension he wants. He hasn't asked for that. And so there is a great suspicion that next year is going to be it. And he's going to basically finish his career with the Warriors the same way Kobe did with the Lakers. And it's unfortunate because the Warriors ownership, their plan was to avoid that. And Lacob has been very public in saying that he did not want this Warrior situation to turn into what happened with the Lakers with Kobe Bryant those final 3-4 years, where he was just surrounded by lottery picks. They were a routine, a lottery team. And then Kobe finishes up with that an incredible 60-point game and bows out. And that's not what the Warriors wanted to do, but they basically got left with no choice, because every young piece they grabbed that they were hoping to develop, Steve Kerr was like, no, thanks. I'm good on this. And it's put them in this position they're now. And so to answer your question again, sorry for all the long-winded answers. There's just so much to all this. I think Steph is going to retire next year. With all that said, and forgive me if I sound like a crazy person, but if the Warriors go past this trade deadline not making any moves, my gripe with this team, and I don't know if you folks, I don't know how much you guys watch the Warriors, and I love your thoughts on this, but my feeling is the biggest problem with this team is just the players that Kerr plays, meaning Gary Payton II would not even be signed by any other of the other 29 NBA teams if the Warriors didn't sign him, let alone play a significant role like Steve Kerr gives him. I mean, GP2 has a role, but he's 6'2". His best days are behind him. He has no offensive skill set, and yet he's getting like 15, 20 minutes out there a night. Brandon Pajemski, who has been pushed on this fan base by Kerr as like the I don't even know what they're trying to push, but he's second on the team in minutes, guys. I mean, would that surprise you? Does that stat surprise you? Brandon Pajemski is second on the Warriors in minutes.
He's a friend of the show, Cyrus. He's a friend of the show.
Yeah.
Raymond Ritter booked him on this podcast about a year or so ago for us because Raymond's the greatest of all time at his job.
Is. Yes.
And Brandon Pajemski gave us very revealing answers about it growing up in Wisconsin and how much Culver's custard means to him, right, Ross? I mean, he's a legit friend of the show.
Yep, and he's a Wisconsin man.
None of these are personal. I have to make that clear time and time and again. We're talking sports.
We got to defend our boy, Cyrus.
Yeah.
I just don't think second in minutes is justifiable. And yet that's where we're at. And my whole point is, if GP2 is at the end of the bench, if Buddy Hield is at the end of the bench, talking about you, Ross, being a former video coordinator, I got film of 2 games this season of the Warriors where I could actually see what the coaching staff sees and the issues on this squad. Buddy Hield cannot defend a fly. Everybody he tries defending goes right by him, no problem. And then Brandon Pajemski is very guilty of that as well. And Brandon Pajemski is not exemplary offensively. You look at his assists, he's averaging 3 and change. I know it's people love hyping up the charges that he gets, but I mean, we're not giving out participation medals here. We're like, you have to actually be a real athlete and produce. And for a guy who's second on the team in minutes to give you 11 points a game, 3.5 assists a game, he's second or third worst on the team in free throw shooting, a 38% 3-point shooter, and those aren't coming in high volume. I just don't get it. I don't get why Kerr has this weird adoration with Brandon Pajemski. To me, if you look at this roster, you put Pajemski at the end, you put GP2 at the end, you might have some hope here. And especially with Kuminga now being a part of the rotation again, because again, Steve Kerr now thinks he fits now that Jimmy Butler's out. I think that could surprise some people. You still have Steph and Curry. You still have Draymond Green. Kuminga can play despite Steve Kerr's weird, bizarre treatment of him. I think there's some pieces here, man. There's some good young players, but that's just me. I could totally be crazy as well saying that.
Yeah, the Warriors are definitely in an interesting place right now, and no one we'd rather hear from than you, Cyrus, bringing a fascinating insider perspective on the Warriors, and we certainly appreciate you stopping by the 48 Minutes podcast. But for our listeners that are listening to this episode and want to hear more from you, how can they find you on social media and also your show here on Believe and on YouTube?
Well, the program is called Golden Daze. Daze is spelled like Dazed and Confused. It's the show socials is at Golden Daze Pod. It's, I hope, super easy. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild, over on Twitter at Surf Journalist. Are we done? Like we're not even touching Giannis?
Well, what do you want to say on Giannis? I'm
what
now,
do you guys think?
You got my attention.
Well, because the Bay Area, because here's the part about Giannis, which I think is fascinating. The Warriors, if the Bucks decided to make a trade this week before the trade deadline, which is Thursday, and I don't remember the exact time, I think it's 12 Eastern on Thursday. The Warriors right now can offer the best package. Like, I don't think any of the 4 teams were in the mix, yes. Right? It's Miami, New York, Minnesota, the Warriors. I personally think the Houston Rockets are absolute putzes for not being in the mix. Like, why are you not pursuing Giannis? You could win a title this year by making that trade. You have a stockpile of like 15 picks. Why are you not using that? I have no idea what Houston's doing not being in the mix on this. But the bigger picture, and you guys maybe can answer that better than me. Ultimately, though, big picture, even though the Warriors can offer the most, they can offer 4 first-round picks and a pick swap. And it would be more pick swaps, except Milwaukee only owns 1 first-round pick, and the other team needs to have a pick as well to do a swap, right? So they can only do 1 swap. That's 5 first-rounders, hypothetically total. And you're also offering Kuminga. You're also offering Pajemski. Jimmy Butler's thrown in the mix as well. That doesn't matter. That's just a contract thing. But at least you're getting some young pieces and picks. But the one variable I don't hear anyone bringing up, and I think it's the most important variable in all this, is where does Giannis want to play? He's going to be an unrestricted free agent after next year. So he's calling the shots here. Like, no one is going to give up a bevy of picks like that. No one's giving up 5 first-round picks for a 1-year rental, right? So where does Giannis want to go? and this is where I don't think the Warriors have a shot. I don't think Giannis wants to come here. Your thoughts?
Bruce?
I mean, look, the place I always figured Giannis would probably want to play is Miami.
Same.
Because Miami to me is just a very attractive franchise, even though they've had their ups and downs. But no state income tax, stable organization. He's a great citizen. He's not going to cause any problems. He's not going to go do anything stupid off the court. But I don't know what Miami has to give up for him. I mean, Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Khalil Ware. I mean, I don't know that that's going to get it done.
Yeah, I don't think so. World B, what's your thoughts on the Giannis situation? Does Golden State stand a chance?
Or anyone else? I mean,
I think Giannis going to Golden State. If he goes anywhere, it's a game changer, whatever. But as Cyrus mentioned, he goes to Golden State. That changes a lot of perspective of that franchise in a hurry. He mentioned, Cyrus, you mentioned Steve Kerr. This would be his last year. Well, if Giannis comes in, maybe I can do it.
That changes.
Steph Curry, retires when his contract. Well, maybe I do want that extension now. It's a game changer for the Warriors as a franchise, obviously, and for any franchise. Miami would seem to be the best fit for his career in terms of productive over the next 7-8 years with a legitimate chance with an organization with a chance to win. I don't really know if you can say that about the other franchise, including my Knicks, who I desperately would like to see him there. But
what about the
T-Wolves?
Like him going to Minnesota is really intriguing, I think.
It absolutely would, except how much Minnesota would necessarily have to give back. True. And does that gut Minnesota, basically?
Now,
I always said OKC. Oh, I'm sorry, Ross. Go ahead.
I was going to say, real curious to get a Warriors fan perspective on this. Does the Giannis and Dame combination not working out give you any type of pause about wanting to see Steph and Giannis together?
No, not at all. To me, Steph is seeing him and Giannis paired up. That the idea of that is unbelievable. It's a fantasy about as wild as you can think up in the NBA. It's Steph is still doing it. He's not the same guy. I mean, that needs to be said. Like we're starting to see some signs of wear this season. But with that said, all you got to do is look at the gravity he draws. And the NBA side note, I'm sure you guys know this, has a new stat that they're actually recording as a measurable, and it's a gravity stat. And Steph is like by far number one in the NBA in that category. The strain he puts on defenses just by himself, surrounded by 4 randoms, is remarkable. I can't imagine what that would look like with Giannis on that team. It would be very KD-like, except Giannis is a different force. But with that said, I think Ross or Michael, I'm sorry, you brought up like the 2 things that going back to Giannis's mindset, which is important here, right? And no one knows what he wants to do, but that is probably the most important thing, is where he wants to go next, because he's the one that decides who to sign the contract extension with, right? And first of all, Miami, Giannis's mom posted a picture just the other day of Giannis when he was younger in Miami. So there was that's a weird flag. Like moms getting in the mix, I think do carry some weight. That's just me. But Michael, what you brought up, I think is very significant, which is that if you're Giannis, you're looking at the Warriors and you're looking at a head coach who just treated Kuminga the way he did. You look at a head coach who basically was the primary reason Kevin Durant left in the first place, and why Kevin Durant did not want to come back last year. In case people missed that, the Warriors had a trade in place with the Phoenix Suns to bring Kevin Durant back to the organization. That trade would have included Jonathan Kuminga. And the person who shut that down was KD. And then you had the report coming out a little bit later from Logan Murdoch of The Ringer, citing Steve Kerr as being the reason both for him leaving and not wanting to come back. And so I think of that. And then I think of the fact that Stephen Curry's turning 40, and that even if it is special, how much longer of a run is that going to be? if you're Giannis, is that the situation you want to get into, right? Because you're right, Steve Kerr would stay longer if Giannis did come here. That probably extends the window for this whole thing by 2-3 years. But all the pressure is going to be on Giannis. Like he's bearing the weight in the same way that you mentioned that Minnesota would have to gut their franchise to get him. So would the Warriors, and they're not exactly a deep team to begin with. So that's why Warriors fans who are dreaming about this, I keep trying to temper the expectations, even though the Warriors have never been in a better position, and I don't think they're going to be in the same position in the offseason because more teams are going to enter the sweepstakes. You're also going to see the asking price go down a little bit because Milwaukee's leverage between now and the offseason does change. You go from Giannis having a year plus this season being on your team, regardless of his contract decision, to now just being next year, and that's all. So you see other teams probably wanting to wait it out to force Milwaukee to lower the asking price, and then you're going to have a lot more teams in the mix. I think this is the only shot the Warriors have, and if Giannis doesn't want to come here, that's it. That's what else are you going to do, And I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's going to overall be a very interesting deadline with a lot of moves being on hold until there is some clarity into the Giannis piece of the deadline equation, and that's a gigantic piece of it. Obviously, the main focus, but
that's annoying, isn't it? If that's the reason for us not seeing more activity in the trade market, that's very annoying.
I mean, it absolutely is. Just given the second apron and salary caps, I mean, yeah, you can't dig yourself too big of a hole and then think, oh, there's life to us getting involved in a Giannis deal, even if you're the third team that's helping assist in the trade, because there is an opportunity where someone else might get involved to acquire a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, and a guy like Kuminga not going to a team like Milwaukee in a deal such as that one. So should be a lot of fun here in the next week to figure out what shakes out in the NBA. Cyrus, once again, we went in double OT like the 03 All-Star game, and it's been a lot of fun. This will be a memorable experience for me as well, having you on our show, and we certainly appreciate your time.
I hope I didn't turn you guys off permanently with the Steve Kerr negativity. I'm sorry. It's such an unpopular topic that every time I touch on this, it's like I'm putting myself in a fire, and I don't know why. It's like I grew up in an era where criticizing a head coach in professional sports as a media member was as common as a slice of white bread. And now, for whatever reason, opinions have become kind of like toxic, and at least on the corporate stage, it's like everybody wants to avoid controversy, and it's weird. I don't know. It's a weird time to be in this industry, but I've decided to go all in on just being authentic. I try to be accurate. And it isn't always going to be a popular take, man. Just like you guys. You had Brandon Pajemski on your show last year, and I get it. You're probably cringing a little bit that I'm ripping him. But, that's what we're do. That's part of this industry, right? Like, I don't know how you can succeed. And if you're not going to be, sometimes giving honest takes that may not be the nicest towards these athletes, I can promise you this. Brandon Pajemski is going to be okay, folks. He's going to be fine in life. He's a pro NBA player making millions of dollars. He's going to get at least one more contract extension. He's going to be okay. He's living life.
And let's go ahead and end on that positive note. So thanks for tuning in to this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. We'll be back with you later on this week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.